Hi, I'm TJ with E-TransControl, and I want to tell you about the 430, TCM430 that is, that we've built specifically for the Dodge, Mopar, Chrysler, whatever you want to call it, transmissions. It's for the RE series, which is the 4-speed automatics that are electronically controlled. The E at the end and there means electronic, full electronic. So these transmissions start from a series of a 42 RE and go all the way up to a 44, 46, 47, and 48 RE. Our controller here that we've designed, the TCM430, will work on any of those transmissions. It'll also work on the earlier version, the RH, which the H meaning hydraulic for the first, second, and third gear shifting, in fourth gear and torque converter control, TCC as we call it, is what will be controlled by this control module as well as the overdrive. Let's start from the beginning. We ship in these nice white boxes. You'll see here has a label on the outside showing the model number of the control module. Inside you're going to open it up. First thing you'll pull out of the box is going to be this nice set of instructions, full color printed, so you get wiring and setup instructions in full color. On the front, we'll notice it says, important information, keep in a safe place. We highly suggest that because in the future you may need to make some adjustments that you've forgotten how to make, or you need to verify a wiring connection or something if there's a short or whatever. So in these instructions it has everything from wiring, setup, everything you need to know how to get this thing to fully function on your vehicle. Also included in there is a nice little sticker here that we include for our marketing, but it's a cool sticker. It shows that we make our product here in the U.S., so we have the American flag on there. Inside the box, it'll be wrapped in a nice plastic enclosure to keep moisture out, the control module itself, and what we call the UI 240, which is the user interface. We utilize this to program and to do some monitoring on your control module as well. In the bottom of the box, you're going to find wire harness. We include a 6-foot harness in length that goes from the control module to the transmission. This harness is a cut wire, and we'll explain why we do that later. But this end is the transmission connector. This little small with the twisted pair wire that is shielded, there's 2 wires, goes to your vehicle's speed sensor. All of our wires are color-coded to match closely as possible the Dodge transmission connector. The speed sensor wires are correct. There are a few wires that we've opted to change in our connector to the transmission, such as the temperature wires. Unfortunately, Chrysler is really bad about using the same color wire for multiple applications with a small stripe on the wire, which is difficult to see in an older wire that's been exposed to fluids like transmission fluid or grease or grime. Over time, the little stripe will fade or even rub off, and you have no idea if that's the correct wire. But another thing we point out in the instructions is pin number, and we highly suggest that you match the wire to the pin number. There's a table here, and it tells you the pin number and exactly what that pin on the connector is connected to inside the transmission in its function. We also include a 4-foot wire that goes from the control module to your TPS, throttle position sensor. We've opted here again to use color codes that we are familiar with and not quite the same as the Dodge. We did use a tan wire, which from our manual show that is correct for the Dodge 47 RE series of transmission, the one that our throttle position sensor on the engine It is a tan for the signal wire. We use the black wire as a ground wire always. The gray wire is your voltage 5-volt feed from the control module to the throttle position sensor. We'll cover which connection it goes to here shortly. But these wires are all TXL, high temperature automotive wire. We use automotive grade high temp loom. We do not seal the ends because we assume that you're going to do the splicing, heat shrink. We suggest soldering, which is the only proper way to connect stranded copper wire in automotive application to where it will be reliable. The old style and currently sold as well butt connectors that just crimp will allow moisture to get in there, and it's only a compression coupling, and that compression coupling under temperature changes will expand, contract. Over time you'll get resistance and it will create problems for you. If you cut back, which we will show you another video later of this, how to cut back, solder, twist the wires together, solder them, heat shrink them with the heat shrink that we provide, which has a sealant within the heat shrink, you'll have no issues for many, many miles and many years to come. We're going to set this aside for now. So we've got a control module, we've got a display module and programmer. Now the next thing, or I guess really the very first thing you should do is read the instructions. Always go through the instructions. We tell you here, find a good location for the control module. We suggest, and actually only suggest, that it go inside the cab in the vehicle where the climate is fairly controlled. These electronics are much more durable and last much longer if the temperature is much more stable, rather than under the hood where the engine produces a lot of heat and shortens the life of the semiconductors. Also, we use a plastic enclosure, which is ABS, which is automotive grade plastics, for our products where possible. And it keeps our costs down, but it is durable. I mean, all new automotive, even fenders and door skins and stuff are made from ABS. So it's a very common plastic polymer that's used for automotive applications. But this should be mounted under the dash. It can be mounted in a console. It could be mounted under the seat of a vehicle that has a small cab or driver area. Any place where it's out of the way. But you got to keep in mind, you've got wires that's got to go to this thing. Power for one. It needs a good ground to the black wire, and this must be a good ground because it's what's driving the solenoids through the off and on in this control module in the transmission. So essentially this is what's turning off and on and creating the shift points, is ground signal. So that must be grounded properly for it to fully function and not having issues. Pink wire is power, 12 volts. It should come from the ignition side of the fuse block. If you can't get it to your fuse block, you want to pull it right off the ignition switch, which I don't suggest. I make sure you use a fuse in between there. We sell a inline fuse holder that's waterproof. It's inexpensive. It's a 10 amp fuse. 10 amp fuse is plenty big enough for this control unit. It draws much less than that. Even the solenoids, all actuated, are less than 5 amps. 10 amp is adequate. So connecting those is important. Here you have a feed for the power going to the transmission, which when the transmission harness is connected, you'll have this connected here, a simple click. The control module to the transmission is that, which is very simple and fast. Connecting the display module, again, is a one cable. We opted to design this where it doesn't need its own power. It can draw power through this cable as well as getting data signal through a CAN bus connection. Simply plugs in there. Now you've got everything connected. that's required other than the inputs that we have here on your little blue connectors, which is a set screw terminal. This is where your TPS wire, other optional inputs, which we have a option for a torque converter engage switch, which you can engage the torque converter manually, the torque converter clutch. Also a brake pedal switch input, which can disengage the torque converter once engaged under emergency situations. Let's say it's engaged or cruising along and somebody slams on the brakes in front of you. You hit the brake pedal, it will disengage the torque converter clutch prior to anything else. So that's kind of a critical thing. But we'll cover the details of this, the inputs, here shortly. So here you are, you're connected, so you can see you've got wires that need to connect. So location for this is critical. Make certain that you have it in a location that, one, you can get this harness, 6-foot harness, down to your transmission and connect everything properly without having to splice if possible. Secondly, you've got to have a throttle position sensor input. We include a 4-foot wire, which we assume if this is under a dash, this will get you out to the engine. If you're drawing it off the engine's factory TPS, the signal, that's okay as well. If not, we sell a universal TPS, which we recommend going on the throttle linkage down at the gas pedal or anywhere on the throttle linkage. It can be attached. If you use that, then these may not be required, this length of wire. So you could actually pull this out, cut this off as needed, cut off the loom, shorten it up if you need. But we provide 4 feet of it and enough loom that you could actually extend it to another pigtail to the plug and have it within the loom. So our programmer. This is everything that does all the settings, sets all the settings, retains the data, is here, as well as here. Now, once you've got your settings set as you like, you can actually run the control module without the programmer. So if you have a vehicle where space is critical and you're having a difficult time finding a place to mount this, or it's a vehicle where you just really don't want to have this on display, this can be put in a glove box out of the way under the seat someplace. Just keep in mind it is a LED screen that is sensitive. You don't want to damage it. You don't want anything accidentally pressing buttons, which could change something. But the control module will actually function without this plugged in. Once a mode is set, you can unplug this and the transmission will fully shift and function without the programmer. All right, well, thank you so much for watching our videos, and we appreciate the business. If you have questions, keep in mind we provide phone support and email. So that's the key way to get to us. If it's not real urgent and you have time, we will reply to your emails within 24 hours. If it's urgent, and it's during business hours, we're happy to take a phone call and walk you through instructions or quick, walk you through setup. But please read the instructions before you call us. We say there's no stupid questions, but let's all be informed on what we're talking about before we ask a question. That way we can get through this and get you up and running faster. Thanks again for your business.